Five. I
Oh.
believe me. Okay. There it is. There it is. Are you ready? Where? Okay, get yourself ready.
I'm just what you said.
Okay. Is Garrett here?
Yeah.
Is Garrett going?
There's Garrett.
Is that Garrett?
Yep.
Beep beep? Oh, you recognize the beep beep?
No,
It's
that's
on my
something.
computer, Jen. It's on my computer, you don't let me.
Yep.
Can we delete that?
All in favor?
All in favor of letting Garrett in.
Let's see. Who's that?
Yes. Ain't that going out today? Yes. Angela, are you? You started recording?
Yeah.
Okay. It is 6:00. And I call to order the City of Deer Park Planning Commission, July 10th, 6 P.M. All members of the commission are present. Our city manager is present, Angelina is present, and Garrett's here. We have a consent agenda that consists of the minutes, the financial report, and correspondence from Janelle Baglian. That's not that right? Close, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Russ has moved to accept it. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
John seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Thank you. Moving on to reports from the staff. Mr. Sweet, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. Just a few things. I put a blog post that we added to the official city blog about the Second Street development that's going on, where the trees are being removed and it's very close to the riparian area and wetlands. And so I put that blog post, printed it out on your desk so that you can have it, and wanted to see if there were any questions for those of you that have read it, or any remaining questions that we might be able to clarify from the planning commission standpoint.
Anything, did you have something, Eric? No.
I did.
Okay, Eric, yes.
First of all, Chad, I want to thank you for doing this. When I got this in the mail, yesterday, I thought it was very appropriate. I had just previously, like 10 minutes before I read this, had a neighbor on the street asking me if I knew much about the development. So she had questions for which I did not have a specific answer. And her questions were all answered by this, and I did a very good job on this. Appreciate your sending that. So the only question I had, I don't understand the whole tree thing. As to regarding our tree ordinance and how many trees people can take and sizes, how is it it meets regulations that the developer can move through a mature tree?
Sure, in our ordinance for tree removal and Oregon revised statute in regards to building codes, when it's a plotted piece of land that is approved for R1 or residential developments, anything that is in the building envelope, such as the house, the septic, and the access to a piece of property, the trees can be removed. So that law trumps our tree ordinance, but we did write it in with the Oregon revised statutes within that to remain legal. But it is perfectly acceptable for people to remove those trees to put a house in, septic, and access. So we monitor that. There's between 28 and 30 trees to be removed, and we're going to have them, go ahead and stake everything out, and we'll approve, all removals prior to, or, before they're able to take any of them down. So, the building official and myself will be doing inspections on this piece of property frequently, make sure it's correct. They'll also have to put up, some barriers so that they don't disturb wetlands. That's a requirement of this job as well. And they will not be in the riparian area at all, which is the 50-foot buffer from the mean high tide level of the. Two or three in there that are already, that have busted in half and are very dangerous. They'll probably have to remove a couple of those, for safety sakes. But that should be it.
Anyone else? All right,
Oh, and,
and you,
just real quick, 4th of July, we, I think had a very successful 4th of July, no, wildland fires, no major medical issues. We had, a few calls that were, a little spicy, one like a major injury the next day, with a hand injury and a firework. That was pretty bad, but other than that, 10th Street was much safer this year with all the signage and the help. We had 3 officers on, which is the second year we've ever had 3 officers on, usually it's just 1. So they've done a great job. They wrote many tickets. I won't say it's not the word harassment. I think we were very educational to some of the folks that were in town that were looking like they were having a good time, and we wanted to make sure that we knew who they were and what was going on. We were very busy. Everybody, the staff worked 20 hours that day to make sure everything went well. But of course, that was the parade as well. Things weren't quite as busy as they had been in the years past. It was still a lot of illegal fireworks out on the beach and some in town. We caught a few of them. We missed a few, but I think all in all, it was a very successful 4th of July. The street dance the next day went really well. We had about 400, 350, 400 people there for that. That got a hitch. Somebody tripped, but it was over something that we didn't put there, so that was okay, but they're okay. But that was great, and then the next day was the homeowners association meeting, so we've been pretty busy over that last weekend, but all in all, things went really well compared to the other 29 or so that I've been familiar with. This one was a little bit more mellow than some, still not perfect, but we're getting there. I think people, you know, back in the day, if you hung out at a bar and they were calling last call, they would say, do you want one more? And people would say things like, no, I gotta get through Gearhart. I think they're starting to say that again, you know, so we're keeping an eye on things pretty well, but our courts are gonna be busy. I don't know, how many tickets do you think came from that? Have you got that yet?
We had to close the firm actually, and now we are issuing the tickets for September.
Okay, gotcha. So they issued probably close to 30, 25, 30 tickets to people who were there for that
Oh,
day.
it's more than that, because Jeremiah, I saw that she said.
Okay, well, so they were,
Cute new recruit.
Yeah.
yeah, they were making a point there that this is a quiet residential community and we're doing our best to keep it that way. So, yeah. That's all
anything
that.
else?
No, not at all.
Okay, Angela, do you have anything to report?
I would just like to ask that everybody be aware and kind of keep in mind not to talk over the top of each other. The last 3 sets of minutes have been really just keep getting more complicated and more complicated for me to do them because I have to keep rewinding to see what somebody says and it makes it a little hard.
Thank you. Garrett, do you have something to report? Besides what's on the agenda?
No, just that city council took your May hearing recommendation on the flood hazard overlay zone amendments and went ahead and had a hearing in June, continued it to July, and voted to adopt option A, which was consistent with your recommendation to just adopt amendments to ensure basic compliance with the National Flood Insurance safety and protection of life and property standards, and that the Endangered Species Act standards are on hold for the time being until we get a little more clarification from the state or see how some other cities are approaching those issues. So I'll leave it at that. That's it.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Commissioners, do you have anything to report?
No.
No, okay. Visitors, this is the time for visitors can make comments that are not related to the agenda. Was there anyone that was wanting to comment? I've only have 3 people signed up here, so anyone want to make comments? No. Okay. Anything out in the Neverland? No.
No,
Okay, I can't usually see them. Okay, I am going to go ahead and move to the public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. I have to get my script, sorry. Public hearing, file 25-005 FZMA. Floating zone change request submitted by Megan Masterson, located at 567 Pacific Way, and further described as Assessor's Plat 6.10.09 AA, tax lot 05900. Said request is to change the zoning of the northern 5,000 square feet of said lot from R2 Section 3.2 medium density residential zone R2 to C1 Section 3.4 neighborhood commercial zone C1 using 5,000 square feet of C1 floating zone established by ordinance 860. There's one sentence. Okay. I need to read a disclosure statement. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide their name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in making a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact are in the city staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes apply to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council or land use board of appeals or to seek damages in circuit court due to a condition of approval. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the planning commission for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence, arguments, or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearings body shall grant the request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, a continuance to a time and date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence, argument, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197.763 6A through E. I need to ask each commissioners if anyone needs to declare conflict of interest and ex parte contact or personal bias.
I visited the site.
You visited this site?
Yes.
I need to hear you speak. Nodding doesn't calculate. John, you visited the site?
the site.
Eric visited the site?
I've walked by several days.
Everson did.
And I've had wine and.
Oh, you have mine. And Roy? Okay, and Jennifer and Jenny. So we all know what we're talking about. Okay, but otherwise no contact or any that. Okay. All right. I need to ask the audience if there are any challenges to the commission's ability to make an impartial decision? Hearing none? All right. Garrett, it's time for your staff report.
All right, thank you. So this is a request to rezone 5,000 square feet of medium density residential land in downtown Gearhart to C1 neighborhood commercial zoning. And there's a few unique qualities of the case, just to highlight up front. One is that it's only rezoning a portion of a legal lot, and particularly the front or northernmost 5,000 square feet closest to Pacific Way. It's also rezoning. Another thing that's notable about it is that the purpose of the rezone, as we understand it, as staff understand it, is to make essentially an existing use more clearly legal and more clearly permitted than it is now. Even though it could be interpreted to have been permitted under a conditional use permit from several years ago. And that's discussed in the staff report. We've attached that conditional use permit to the packet. And third, the rezone is applying C1 zone that the city asserted in Ordinance 860 already existed elsewhere in downtown, and that it essentially held in reserve as floating zone. So the C1 zone, you could think of it as like it never stopped existing. It just didn't have a place attached to it. And that changes the way that we consider some of the findings at the end of the staff report. And you'd see that in reading those findings. So those are just a few unique qualities of it. Just a few notable aspects of the site are that it's adjacent to some other medium density residential land to the west and the south of the subject property. And to the east and across the street is more neighborhood commercial zone land. So the request isn't to rezone the property to a zone that's like not even in the neighborhood. It's sort of a marginal change for one piece of this property. And specifically, this lot is owned by the same person that owns the daughter's wine shop next door, and the use is outdoor seating for that shop, which right now is classified as a neighborhood cafe. And they're just trying to continue using it that way to the best of my knowledge. So that's something to consider. Is that's the proposal. Of course, in the future, if you approve C1 zoning, a future owner or this owner could potentially change the use to other uses that are permitted in C1. So just to not read the whole staff report to you, the first few pages are reviewing the base zone standards. For example, showing that if you were to approve the request, you're not approving a non-conforming lot in terms of its size in the C1 zone. So the lot meets the minimum lot size requirement, for example. There is no minimum lot size, but we always want to make sure we're not rezoning a property in a way that creates a non-conforming lot. It discusses on also like the suitability of R2 zoning in a relative way to C1. Identifies the uses that would be permitted in C1. Moving on to page 5, as the staff report is numbered at the bottom of each page. Discusses again those dimensional standards and addresses some of the overlay zones, like the tsunami hazard overlay zone, which wouldn't really be an issue for this rezone. Development improvements would not be required at the time of a rezone for tsunami evacuation routes. Similarly, moving on to page 6 of the staff report, transportation improvements, changes to driveway access and traffic impact analyses, we don't think are required at the time of rezone. There is some discretion in terms of requiring traffic impact analysis. And if that's something that you all want to discuss more, we can do that. And there's also a draft condition of approval for you to consider that would require a traffic impact analysis in the future based on some certain thresholds, some certain actions. Page 7 of the staff report, as it's numbered at the bottom, gets into the actual zoning amendment approval criteria. So as always, the rezone has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. It has to meet a land use need. It has to be compatible with development patterns in the area. The land has to be physically suitable for the uses permitted, and public facilities and services have to be adequate. So in this section of the report, I think some of the more interesting areas to consider are the commercial development policies in Gearhart. So as you all know, the city has a prohibition on rezoning more land to commercial development. In the downtown area, there's policies that discourage commercial zoning for anything other than businesses that serve local residents in the downtown area. So these are, important policies that are really pretty unique to the city of Gearhart. So we want to take them seriously, but there's also some unique conditions with this floating zone amendment because the C1 zone already exists, where staff's interpretation and the findings we make essentially say that we are not creating more commercial zoning. The commercial zoning already existed. So that kind of thinking comes up in several places here. Trying to see if there's anything else that I really want to highlight. That concept is also applicable to the criteria on whether the amendment meets a land use need. So again, the 5,000 square feet of C1 zoning already existed. And so the finding is really based on this premise that we don't really need to demonstrate a need because the zoning already exists. We're just applying it to this particular property. Another one to consider is just in terms of compatibility with surrounding development. Adding more commercial zoning adjacent to residential zoning in some ways isn't ideal. It sets up a future where there's some more potential commercial uses getting closer to residential uses. That being said, based on the intent of Ordinance 860, which was to use this commercial zoning somewhere downtown in the future, this site seems relatively appropriate. The adjacent lot to the west is currently vacant. And again, properties to the north across the street and to the east are already used as commercial uses. And the owner, at least for the foreseeable future, seems to just intend to continue using this lot as outdoor seating rather than to construct a building that would allow for like the largest, that would max out the allowed development in the C1 zone. It's also notable that the lot is also currently used as the septic system for the adjacent Daughter's Wine Shop as well. So if you think about, you're trying to think of like worst case or most incompatible case scenarios in the future, that would probably involve like a reconfiguration of both the daughter's wine shop lot and the subject lot that you're considering tonight, because they would need to have a septic system on their own lot next door if this lot were to be built out. So in that regard, it just seems like this property has some things going for it in terms of mitigating the worst potential kinds of impacts on adjacent residential areas that not all other lots would. Okay. I think that's all I wanted to really highlight. The staff report basically includes findings ready for you that would support approval of the rezone request. There are a couple of conditions of approval related to vacation rentals and traffic impact analyses. And just as a reminder, with rezones, the planning commission makes a recommendation with a motion, and then the city council ultimately makes a decision after a city council hearing that we would hold in a month if you decide tonight. So you could recommend approval, recommend denial based on your deliberation, where we get some alternate findings from those in the staff report. Or if you need more information, you could continue the hearing to August. So I'm available to answer questions. Thank you.
Don, you have a question?
I think I have a question for Garrett and maybe for Chad. If we approve or recommend approval of that 5,000 square feet, what happens to the remaining square feet of that lot? Does it stay R2?
It remains R2, and with the septic system there serving the adjacent lot, it's essentially not usable. Yeah.
Does that make that a non-conforming lot? I mean, is it still the same lot with just two different zones? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's the same lot with two different zones, and it doesn't create a situation where you get to do both things in each zone. So no, it doesn't create a non-conforming lot. It's essentially just an area that is R2. I think in this case, it's not what we're used to, so it's like a little bit uncomfortable to think about, but in every way I've thought about it, it's rather inconsequential. Like it's the back portion of the lot, and it's not going to be used for residential uses. Basically, most of it would be taken up by a setback. Whether the whole lot is R2 or the whole lot is C1, you could have about one dwelling on it based on the entire lot size of the whole lot. So we wouldn't be put in a situation where we have to allow someone to have a dwelling in the back to reflect the rights associated with R2, and businesses in the front to reflect the rights associated with C1. It's, for all intents and purposes, a C1 lot. And, they wouldn't be able to have business activities back in the R2 area.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The other question I think is for Chad, because this was before your time, Garrett, is when we converted the C1 zone over here to park, was this floating zone was this kind of the idea to have this at some point in the future?
Yeah, and it was started, the conversation started with Department of Land Conservation and Development when the city was considering taking that C1 zoning out of the park so we could use it as a park. Then DLCD came up and said that that's great, but your town was built on the idea of these certain percentages of available zones. So they recommended or required, I can't remember, that we hold the zoning aside for future placement, because that was an appropriate amount of commercial for the city of Gearhart when all of the zoning was being discussed back in the day.
And this was probably about 12 years ago, was that kind of where we're at, ish, and I did say here somewhere, you know.
2012.
2011,
Or yeah,
it was signed in January 12th, 2004. January 4th, 2012. I knew I'd get out. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Does anyone else have a question? John?
Also for Garrett, Garrett, the condition of approval related to vacation rental struck me as a little bit odd. In C, this would be, if we agree to this, we end up having 5,000 square feet of C1, which is currently our. Build anything on it, it could potentially be a vacation rental, not a tent, obviously. Wouldn't that be a conditional use anyway? Wouldn't we be able to address that? Either one of you, Chad's indicating no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the vacation rental would be a conditional use in the C1. I should probably verify since you raised the question. Maybe I have that wrong.
no, you're correct.
So it's an outright use in C1.
No, it's a prohibited use
Yeah.
in the C1 zone. The only thing that can be used in the C1 zone is kind of the taxpayer setup where 50% of the building can be used for a residence. Residence for the people to live in, as it is now, or a residence for people that are working there, or just a long-term rental. The short-term rentals are not allowed in the C1 zone. They're only allowed in the R3 zone and where they are currently at in the R1 zone.
So Angelina, this is me responding, so you have that in your meeting notes. Okay, so now we've got it clear that in a C1 zone, it's a prohibited use. So why in the world do we need a condition of approval related to it?
So I think that's an error on my part in reading and interpreting sections of the code. Perhaps I was looking at C3 on accident when I saw, oh no, that could be permitted. Maybe the planning commission would want to have a condition. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll
but-
double check that while we're talking, that I missed it as well, but it's true. It's not allowed in the C1 zone.
Anything else, John?
Nope.
Anyone else have questions? I have a curiosity question, and maybe Chad, you know, so tax lot 5,906,000, they've always been sold as a package? Is that right, Chad? The two lots next to
In
each
the
other?
last 3 sales that I've seen, yes.
In the last 3 sales, isn't it a little odd to have your septic tank on an adjoining lot, or?
Yeah, typically, if there was any changes or major changes were being made, we will probably have the lot line adjustment be made so that it was all one piece of property, but this one's kind of unique. It is different, but not unheard of.
I just found it curious to, oh, my septic tank's in my neighbor's lot. Okay, oh, you had a
I have a
question?
question for Garrett, yeah. Garrett, I see from our city plan that we're to have a compact town center in the vicinity of Pacific Way and Cottage Avenue, but I wondered if there was any other requirements for this, for citing this zone. Does it need to be physically adjacent to another C1 lot? Does it need to be, is there like a boundary of streets that it needs to be in? Has any of that been set?
Not that I've found. So in terms of criteria for applying the C1 zone, let's see here. There's, I mean, it's generally intended to be in this area that you all sort of know it when you see it, downtown Gearhart. But it doesn't specifically say that C1 has to be adjacent to other C1 per se. The purpose of the C1 zone is to serve Gearhart residents rather than tourists or commuters. And businesses are intended to fit into the residential character of the neighborhood and not create architectural or traffic conflicts. And then, so that's from the zoning code. And then in terms of the comprehensive plan, there's not like a set of clear-cut bullet points that say like where C1 is or is not supposed to be located.
But in its description, it was defined in the C1 zone as residential community, so it's supposed to be the mix. That's why there's low impact in the C1 zone, so as to not really bother the residents as much as possible, but still provide that. One of the things that's looked at sometimes in cities is that spot zoning is not really well appreciated, so that where we would just take a piece of C1 and plop it into the middle of something else that doesn't have any C1 zone, or in this case, the C1 zone is right next door. So we're not spot zoning, and that's something that we were paying attention to.
Right.
But yeah, it's meant to be in that downtown area.
Thanks.
All right, moving on, it is now time for the applicant to give her testimony. If you would like to come up here, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Megan Masterson. My address is 567 Pacific Way. In Deerheart, Oregon, 97138. Okay. And is the floor mine?
You can do. Yes,
Perfect.
it's your floor. You get to say, you get talk as long as you want to, and then we may have questions for you, or we may not have questions for you. We'll just see what happens. Okay?
Perfect. In that case, I'll also mention, my mother is here. She's a co-owner of the property, though I'm the sole proprietor of the business, as well as Mark Meeker on Zoom. He is our real estate broker and land use consultant and has been invaluable in this process. Not to mention several customers and Deerheart residents who have come in order to kind of show their support for this change in this application. I will admit I'm a bit nervous, and so I did prepare a statement. We submitted this application because we feel that it will allow us to augment the space to better serve our neighbors and enrich the neighborhood commercial zone in downtown Deerheart. When I envisioned opening this space, I wanted to create a community hub. The outpouring of support from Deerheart residents over the past 5 months has been astounding, and I'm hopeful that by rezoning this lot, I can make relatively minor changes to better accommodate guests across seasons. I'm open to any questions.
Okay, so. That's fine, that's great. John.
First of all, thank you for opening Daughters. It's been a wonderful addition to the community, and we've enjoyed it several times. The question about what it is you intend to do with it is not covered in the application really. We know right now it has seating, it has a little shed which could be used for service. Is there anything, what else do you intend?
No, that's exactly. Mostly I applied for this because I am seeking the flexibility to be able to respond to community requests. So the flexibility to serve, to utilize the shack outside. My hope is to install either heaters or fire pits to create more of an all-season use out there for rainy July days. But that's really.
So Florida, we have it as an end.
Exactly.
That's all I had.
Okay, do you have another, Eric?
So just to follow up on that a little bit, are there things that you envision that you would maybe want to do that you could only do under the commercial designation that you can't currently do with your conditional use on the R2? What's the real
Frankly,
difference
yeah.
for you there?
Based upon our conversations, I think it's, there are two factors. One is remaining nimble in response to community requests and ongoing changes. From what I understand, under the non-conforming use permit, any permanent changes to that outdoor space would need to be approved by the city. And in this case of installing a fire pit or removing some of the landscaping or making kind of more substantial adjustments, I would seek the ability to do that through commercial zoning.
I have an example for you.
Thank you, yeah, Chad.
May I give an example?
Yeah.
The previous owner wanted to put up a pergola to protect themselves from the weather and the people who were attending the restaurant, so that they could extend their off-season a little bit. We would not allow them to install that pergola because at the time it was a non-conforming use.
In an
So
R,
there-
in an R2,
Correct, yeah,
even with the conditional use permit.
correct, because that piece of property was not C1, it is R2. And so we don't let people further make a piece of property even more non-conforming. They have to leave it the way that it was, or they have to even further move it towards the R2 zone type application. So the pergola was denied. If she goes ahead and does a C1, gets the C1 zone floating amendment, then she would be able to come to the city and work through a building permit process, as long as everything that she's doing is the same with her business, then we would allow her to do those sorts of things.
Because that's an allowed use.
Yes,
Got it. Okay,
yes.
that answers that question. Thank you.
Any other questions here?
It's just a comment. I remember Tracy
Emerson?
having a problem with pergola, so
Yeah.
I was wondering what exactly the problem is. Now I know.
Yeah, and Cynthia Tap beforehand used that before the zoning was put into place, but it was always R2. So Cynthia Tap was allowed to continue to use that piece of property as her outdoor space for the restaurant. But any additional work would be denied. This would fix that and allow her to maybe better utilize the property.
Any questions? All
I
right.
have a question.
Oh, Dawn?
Well, I think you skipped me when you went straight to John.
No, I was just questions for her.
You
They're
did,
not
his hand was
discussion.
up first.
Oh, well, I
I was
didn't
just
skip
going-
you, you have to, yeah.
Megan, thank you for being here tonight. The only question I have is, one, how business and do you see this change beneficially in that way?
Yeah,
We don't need specifics, but.
of course,
just
yeah. And frankly, I'm not prepared to provide. Business has been incredible. I have very much outpaced my initial 6-month business plan. Thanks virtually entirely to Gearhart residents. The Gearhart community has been massively supportive. And I was really terrified to open a small business on the coast in February. February 1st, the week of the snow, was our first week. And I expected to be by myself at least through May, and have hired a seaside resident as to have some extra hands, and it's been incredible. So that being said, I also see that outdoor space. I think there's so much potential, and as you mentioned, expanding the actual season, and even within the on season, being able to use it on less ideal days, which is a reality out here. So yes, I think that I see this as there's a lot of potential for me as a business owner being able to utilize this space.
For sure.
I think the 4th of July was a great example. The patio was bustling with folks, both for the parade and for the street dance. And it was my first 4th in Gearhart. And yeah, it was incredible. And the community was really, really supportive, and yeah.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. So go ahead and take your seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is now time for any proponents that would like to speak. Are there any proponents who would like to speak? You may speak. Did you sign in?
I did,
Excellent. Okay. Heather, right?
yes.
All right.
There's so many
If you,
of us on there.
okay, please stand, give us your full name again and your address
Sure.
for the recording.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Day and I'm a resident at 762 F Street here in Gearhart. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Daughters and very supportive of this addition to the patio. Personally speaking, I love walking my dog around Gearhart, taking the bridge path. It gives me an opportunity to get to know my neighbors, and I have found that being on the outdoors patio space that Daughters would expand upon that, so I could further have the opportunity to get to know the community and spend more time outside, so that was great, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else? Yes, Terry, please stand and give us your full name
I
and your
didn't
address.
even know this was on the agenda tonight, and I have to say Kathy and I are remiss never going to Donna's. But after hearing this, within a week, we're gonna start going there.
I'll see you there.
You're delightful, and I hope you pass it.
Now you have a new approach to marketing.
I'm looking at everything.
That's right.
I expect a neighborhood for.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Is there anyone online? Yes.
I did not sign in, but can I say something?
We have a, yes, you may. We just have to have it in writing and we have to have it because, like I said in the statement, if we don't have that record and someone doesn't like something, then you can object or whatever.
What haven't we done?
Okay, I'm seconding it.
Should I give it to Terry to sign?
Terry's name is already on
Oh,
there.
it's already on there, excuse me.
Lynn wanted to speak. If we also have a virtual, she wasn't able to sign it.
Okay, and that, we can handle that one. But otherwise we'll stick with the regular.
I just wanted to add to.
Okay, your
oh,
full name and
oh,
your address.
I'm Shelley O'Neill, I live at 201 3rd Street, Fairhart.
Thank you.
I know Don was asking you about like the potential business benefits of this, and I just want to add a little bit to what you were saying as well. This is a benefit to our community. This is something that the community has been asking Megan for. The community has been asking previous owners for, and it's, to me, it's not about the benefit to our business. I'm not to say a business, believe me. But it's a benefit to the community and
Thank you. There's someone online that wants to speak, and I don't know who, oh, the lady with her hand up.
Lynn.
Okay, so can you hear me? Okay, so we will unmute you. Please give us your full name and your address slowly so we can write
Just
it
gonna have
out.
to unmute yourself.
Oh, you need to, you're unmuted, okay.
My name is Lynn Clodden. I live at
Would you
305
please, well, would you spell your last name?
CLAUDON. I live at 305 D Street, and in September, we will have owned this house for 30 years. I'm speaking in support of the proposed zone change. Megan and her mother and her team have created a space that is so welcoming to our community and our neighbors that even me, as a non-drinker, I've spent quite a bit of time there and have enjoyed it very much. I think the addition of the outdoor space will be great for the community. It's been a wonderful place for me to spend time with our neighborhood, which is a little more comfortable than our usual gathering on street corners with our dogs. That's all I have, and I just would like you to support this zone change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you unmute yourself again, please.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's proponents. Do we have any opponents? Do we have anyone that just wants to make a neutral statement? I'm never. Okay, did the applicant have anything else you would like to say?
No, just very, very grateful for your time and support.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. It is now time for the commission statement. As Don knows, I will start with him.
Thank you, Ms. Gideon. As you can see, these are mostly all, probably all Gerhart residents in support and involved in the parade, the dance, the golf course, and supporting local businesses. And to me, to clarify the use of that space, which, has had issues for other owners in the past. If we can get this right by recommending passing that this time, I think that'd be a benefit for the business and to the community, as I believe Heather said. And for all of us. Yeah, we were here for the 4th of July and there were a lot of people that aren't residents here in that way. They could benefit from that too, but the main purpose was obviously for the citizens of here, so. And as you mentioned, having some weatherproofing in July. That doesn't make any sense. Is a benefit for all of us for sure, so I would support that for sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Don. John, did you have something you'd like to share?
We don't get too many no-brainers, sometimes we get them, and in my opinion, this is one, so I'm fully in support.
Okay, Eric?
Nothing in particular, I don't have
Okay.
any questions or issues, I think it's an appropriate use of the floating zone.
All right, Emerson?
I agree with the last three speakers. I think that's what we're gonna use.
Russ?
I agree with the last four.
I was surprised that there's nothing that can be done to the property beyond what's there right now. I mean, I was thinking if this is a conditional use, without knowing what your real plans were for, or bigger plans, what would prevent you from just continuing as you are now? But if putting in a fire pit or any kind of shelter would be exceeding what you're permitted to do, that's a real limitation on your business. I do see, this is the last piece of C1 we've got. And so there's some thought about what to do with it. And we also don't know in the future what might happen with that. I don't know what the building requirements would be, if there's something would be put in there, some of the structure at some point, if there would be setbacks, rules, all of that. That's not what's in front of us. We can't predict that. But I see your business as being beloved in this, and you're successful, and there haven't been that many small businesses that have been. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Okay, so we've all had our say. Sounds great to me. Do I have a motion? And I believe, Garrett, you are saying that the first condition, vacation rental shall not be permitted in this site, etc., does not need to be there, but that we could have the condition of a traffic impact analysis might be required in the future if uses change or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And staff have authority to require one anyway. Like if we think for future development, but if you want to like make sure that one gets done for any change of use or developing like an actual structure, then it would be reasonable to make that a condition.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there someone that would like to make a motion?
One quick question.
Yes, John.
Could we modify the condition to not just say changes of use, which could be the fire pit, but actually specifically to say required for future development of a structure or something like that? Because there's some language we could come up with that is less, I'm just worried that if we put condition 2 as part of our recommendation, then it could be literally anything. A fire pit, for example.
Garrett, you could use change of occupancy.
Yeah, I mean, I think they might actually be. I'll let you all deliberate on it. It sounds like you don't want to be too prescriptive and requiring a traffic impact analysis, only for something like big and significant. Maybe even if Megan, for example, and the owner group wanted to sell it to just one of them, or change the concept slightly, a traffic impact analysis wouldn't be appropriate. But it's like something big that involves like a new structure. That would probably also involve the daughter's structure changing so they could have their own septic system over there. Then you want a traffic impact analysis. So yeah, I think the words you suggested, just saying that it's for development, including a new structure, that would work fine, and it's reasonable to do that.
Jenny?
It's the next. I'm writing. Yes, Don.
Garrett, did you say that if there was a change in the development or to the building or even change of occupancy, the staff could request a traffic impact analysis?
Yep.
Well, then we can also just get rid of both conditions and not have any of them on there. If that's what we, if the staff is able to do that, there's no reason for us to actually have.
Well, but. We're thinking, I don't know.
What was the question?
The question
And I'll
was,
also
in
say,
addition
just
to
as a
the-
reminder that that generally speaking, like adoption of the C1 zoning originally accounted for traffic impacts and it became a floating zone. So it's like Gearhart's transportation system and its transportation system plan are already accounting for the amount of commercial use you would expect from 5,000 square feet of C1 zoning. But it's really like, are there are there gonna be like acute traffic issues downtown or related to this site in particular? You know, in that location where you'd be, where maybe a TIA could be useful in the future. It's okay to defer and like let staff use their authority. We have our guidance in the zoning code. But if you want to be careful about that, you can specify a condition.
Okay. So you kind of understand. Today, we could go, well, there wouldn't be any need for it. But part of our thing is we have to look down the road 10 years from here or something. So by putting that second condition in there, it wouldn't really change anything, but who knows what someone might decide. She may have 10 years ago, I'm done, and something else would come in, but I can't make the motion, someone else has.
Can we discuss this a little more before?
Yes, we may, Eric.
What's a pergola?
Oh, it's a structure that has slats across the top.
It's a cover without a cover.
Yeah,
Okay, you know, cause.
it doesn't really prevent the rain
I
from
mean, to
coming
get
in.
to this point, small changes to this that don't alter the use of the property.
Right,
We don't want to put stricture on that.
right.
Not to mention, if the city staff can already request a TIA if needed, then we don't want to make this burdensome in any way. Unless we make the wording such that some kind of significant change in the use or significant size of structure, I would go along with that. But if we just use the words for change of use or development and leave it that vague, I think that burdens the current owner. Especially when there's the backup that the staff can always call for this, for any changes that are being asked for on the property.
The word is shall be. What if we change shall to may?
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
Would that take care of the whole issue rather than shall? Which is maybe required?
It would be, I mean, the C1 zone is already highly restricted.
Right. Yeah, we know that.
So whatever it is that they want to do would have to be within reason of the C1 zone and likely be a conditional use. Potentially where then the planning commission would have an opportunity to make sure it was right for the community.
So in other words, those changes would come to the planning commission again.
If she was going to change the business type into something that would be, the only thing that's outlined in this zone is the neighborhood grocery market, barber salon, boot, and spa services, arts, crafts, gallery, studio, home occupations, government offices. Conditional uses is neighborhood cafe, variety store. And a residential use is permitted in conjunction with the permitted use, where the residential use does not exceed 50% of the building's total floor area. So it's pretty restricted.
So let me get this clear. They currently have a conditional use to do what they're doing now in the R2. And if it becomes commercial, they're still gonna be conditional use to maintain a
Not
neighborhood
for minor
cafe.
things,
What's that?
not for minor things.
If,
This
No,
would
no,
be
no.
for like a new business or a new building.
Right, but if it becomes commercial now, it's not the current use of the property is not an outright use. It's not, because a neighborhood cafe is not an outright use. Right?
Outside seating is allowed.
so the outside seating was
Yeah.
mentioned in the conditional use, and if they were to do things that would
Right,
enhance the outside seating, then they would be allowed to do that, but if they wanted to put in another,
Pergola.
wait, I gotta back up on that. They have a conditional use for that R2 zone. Yes, that's why they're operating that space as it is, as a conditional use. Yeah,
It's included in the conditional use for the other lot, with the other lot put together. But that one is for outside seating.
okay, but the outside seating that they're doing, is that an outright use in C1? It's not, it's not.
neighborhood cafes.
Yes.
For-
Neighborhood
sorry.
cafe. I
I'll
thought,
let Garrett answer that one first, and then
Yeah, so the neighborhood cafe outdoor seating will remain a conditional use in C2, in the C1 zone.
of that
The
conditional
important
use.
difference is that staff always have to exercise some discretion when someone wants to make a minor change to a conditional use that's already been approved.
Okay.
Generally, when there's a change to a conditional use, get a new conditional use permit, right? If it's gonna be bigger, or more impactful. But if there's not like conceivable impacts on the surrounding area, then like people change things all the time. You add one table, I don't know, change the color of your door. Those are extremely non-impactful changes, right? But there was an issue with the conditional use being in the R2 zone, which is that neighborhood cafes are not listed as conditional uses in the R2 zone. Okay, so yes, the Gearhart Planning Commission issued a conditional use for a neighborhood cafe in the R2 zone, but no, neighborhood cafes are not supposed to be conditional uses in that zone. Practically speaking, we all understand this lot is constrained by the adjacent septic system anyway. I think the planning commission was acting reasonably in some regard, but some years pass and staff start to wonder, like, oh, is this really okay? Like, is this how it was supposed to be? It makes it harder to act with some like reasonable discretion when someone wants to do something within reason under their existing conditional use permit. Changing the zoning to C2 and this sort of refresh consideration of the whole site having occurred in 2025 will be helpful in that regard. So, a neighborhood cafe with outdoor seating, that is actually a conditional use in the C1 zone, unlike in the R2 zone.
Okay.
So that's good clarification we'll get here if you approve the rezone.
And that conditional use existing will travel forwards into the C1 with it. They don't have to apply for that again, obviously.
Yeah, we thought it would be overly formalistic to have you answer the approval criteria, which they're duplicative for the conditional use, in terms of like neighborhood impacts and appropriateness of the use. So yeah, it continues forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I make a
Yes,
motion?
John,
Can I make a motion?
let's make sure, have we discussed this? We discussed it, yes, John.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval of the zone change with no conditions. No, I can think about it, with your may, with your number 2 condition of approval, but the word shall change to may.
Okay. So John has made a motion to recommend to the city council to recommend approval of the zone change with what was number 2, but it would be the only single condition, traffic impact analysis may be required. changing the shall to may, correct?
Correct.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Emerson seconded. Is there any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. If passed unanimously, enjoy your C1 zone.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you would like to exit now before we go on with other stuff, you may, or if you want to continue to market your.
I've got the kids alone over there, I
Whoa.
gotta take that over.
Scary.
Thank you so much, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, thank you.
Okay, so moving forward with our agenda tonight, we do not have any unfinished business. We do not have any new business. But we do have some information on pickleball from Garrett. You've all received his information about noise level and where, you know, didn't seem to be a lot of information. We've also received over the last couple of days some correspondence from some citizens of Gerhart about this. This piece that we received tonight, pickleball noise and city noise ordinance, is new information to us. I don't think any of us saw this before tonight. Okay. I'm familiar with the noise ordinance because I have a problem with barks and dogs. But, Garrett, what would you like to share with us?
So, just context again, so, you know, you had, concerned citizens come to you, I think specifically requesting a prohibition on pickleball courts in residential zones. We recommended, and that was in response to like a specific court that's being converted, I think as we speak. We broadened the discussion a bit to say like, hey, staff can bring information back to you about alternative approaches to regulating pickleball, to limit noise impacts. I think, you know, we at least I briefly identified that some communities use like nuisance noise ordinances. Sometimes just their existing ordinance, most specify decibel levels that are prohibited. You can use zoning, as was suggested by the concerned citizens. And then there might also be approaches where you, instead of using your zoning ordinance, you specify that like courts have to be a certain distance from homes, for example, just like, you know, in some communities, liquor stores have to be a certain distance from schools. And that's not necessarily in the zoning ordinance all the time. And so I went and looked for approaches in zoning ordinances and in just specifying distance restrictions. And before writing this memo, just found a couple examples that I think illustrate like some of the, I was surprised at the great distances that are specified and the largeness of the lot sizes, minimum lot sizes that are specified for pickleball in a couple of these communities. Requiring at least 600 feet, for example, from residences, or in another case, between 250 and 600 feet. They've included hours restrictions in their zoning ordinance, lighting restrictions, and in one case, a minimum lot size of 1 acre. There are other approaches. City manager provided information on nuisance noise approach. I did a little research on that too, and found that, you know, based on the information that Chad provided, it's like, yeah, maybe within around 250 feet or so, you get down to a noise level that's consistent with our existing decibel restrictions. I also found information online suggesting it is up to about 600 feet that you need in some cases to bring pickleball noise down to, 45, 50 decibels. So I think there's potentially like some more work to do researching that if you're interested in a distance-based approach. And yeah, we just wanted to give you, I was only able to give you 2 examples here in my memo because I didn't want to give you anything unless I could point you directly to the actual ordinance or some of the findings that were used to adopt it. But I know there are other examples around the country, and I've even collected a couple more in the last couple days. And so it's really just, we wanted to make sure we were starting with an appropriately broad discussion about different ways of doing this, specifying noise levels in a nuisance ordinance. I think Chad has identified some like enforceability issues there, and I think other communities have had challenges with that, using like police resources to go around measuring noise and enforcing on pickleball. And then, we could potentially use zoning as a planner wanting to keep a clean zoning ordinance. It's a little painful to think about discussion of pickleball in each of the base zones in our zoning ordinance, but perhaps we could address it in Article 6, for example, where we address fences and other things that apply throughout the city. Using, any combination of lot size, distance, lighting, and can even reiterate the noise levels there. So it's also okay if you don't want to regulate pickleball through any of these ways specifically. Like we have our noise ordinance. Most communities don't specifically regulate pickleball, but then again, maybe most don't have pickleball courts getting built in residential zones. So it's totally legitimate conversation, and we want to be here to support you. And we can take it from here with doing some more research, presenting like a specific ordinance draft. Or I think based on some recent experiences we had, for example, with the tree ordinance, perhaps briefing the city council and getting some input there before going headlong down the road of recommending one approach or another. But I'll open it up to y'all for discussion. Perhaps Chad had something he wanted to add.
You brought up my specific question, Garrett. Has this been discussed at city council? Chad, Garrett, nothing?
Nothing on this particular issue. They've been updated, but I haven't heard any opinions coming from the
So
city
we haven't
council.
got any direction from
The
them.
city council has discussed quite often the pickleball courts themselves in the downtown city zone and decided not to allow expansion at this point, but also to allow the 2 courts that were there to remain in use.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add to what Garrett has said?
Just a few things, and I'll keep it short. If you don't mind, thank you, Madam President of the Commission. I provided a basic report that I got to you today. It's where the sunburn came from. I went out and I measured pickleball players. I've been waiting for pickleball players to be playing pickleball.
I was out there today and they measured me.
I think you were one of the people there. I just want to introduce you to the device that we use for noise ordinance. Now, the noise ordinance is attached to this report that I did, ordinance 877. And the reason that the noise ordinance was done, 877, which I believe was in 2014, was because we had an ordinance previously that thou shalt not own a barking dog. We had a neighbor that was very upset about a barking dog that was next door. We took it to court finally, and we had enough evidence to show that this dog was barking all the time. And the judge threw it out because he says, show me a dog that does not bark. You need to have more of a quantitative approach to this. So we bought this X-Tech meter with a little fuzzy ball on top and came up with the ordinance that you see attached. I applied that ordinance to the pickleball levels that I received today, but my science is flawed. I found that I ran it without the fuzzy top on it. It is calibrated to run with the fuzzy top, and the calibration is out of date. So this is just for discussion, these numbers that I provided you. So we have this, the thresholds with the sound level meter is in a residential zone from 7 AM to 10 PM. 55 decibels is allowed, 10 to 7 AM, 50 decibels. Commercial zones, 65 decibels. Are allowed from 7 AM to 10 PM, and then from 10 to 7, 60 decibels. A normal office building with nobody really making noise, maybe a little typing, is about 45 decibels. So that we can give you an idea of where that was. So I took some measurements on the pickleball, I went 100 feet, I was at the park, the water treatment facility park. And those are the numbers that I got. Ambient parking lot noise was 29 decibels, traffic passing 67, pickleball paddle strikes. It's a new measurement, paddle strike measurement, 65 to 73. And who was the tennis player that used to make all the noise when they would hit the ball? Celis. I was gonna call this the Celis, but we decided player celebrations, yells, cheers. About 58, that was 100 feet, 30 feet from the court, which was in the pickleball court itself. Those were the numbers that I received, 78 to 77. 324 First Street, which is just located north, I went near the front door. 454 First Street is just down the block a little bit, I wanted to put some distance on it, it's about 280 feet away, and the decibel levels go up. Where we would measure these decibels from, if somebody was to make a complaint, would be for where the person is at in their residence, not at the site where the pickleball is being played. If you know anything about decibel levels, it changes dramatically in this machine with distance. So it's difficult to do, but I tried to find some distances for similar to the resident that has been asking us about this, compared to where their pickleball court was, and it's within the range of what I tested. So you can see on the third page that the comparisons that a lot of the paddle strikes that were within the park, yes, would exceed daytime residential limits. But as I got more distance at 454 First, they were not exceeding of that. So it really depends on the distance. There's also interpretation. Including recommendations are really just for discussion's sake, but that's the data that we found. That's the comparison to our current noise ordinance. And that's how we work with this noise meter and any complaints that we might get. And just to let you know, in the 13 years or so, or 12 years or so since we've had this ordinance, we have behind us full right there. We haven't ever had to use it since we put it in place. Now, also, I will say that pickleball was not a thing when we designed the noise ordinance. It was not thought of when that was constructed.
What about the dog?
The dog got off scot-free on that one, but we haven't had any other issues with dogs that have really, because there's also for dogs, it has to be a certain amount of time, it can't just be 1 or 2 barks. They have to be going on for about 20 minutes. An officer has to stand there with this for about 20 minutes, log the data, build a case, take it to court.
I would know this because I have a loud barking dog next to me. And our former chief of police lived around the corner. We tried, but the dog barks 24 hours a day, but not 20 minutes at a time.
And currently this conversation is at 65 decibels.
Oh, do we need to be quiet?
That's better.
Okay. Oh, but no celebrating, John. We see that you were here.
Any calibrated that,
So-
since you.
Okay,
No.
so
So it's really important.
because I have no guidance on what I should be doing at this point. I know Mr. Graff spoke to us, read his letter last time. Are the rest of you here supportive supporting not having a pickleball court or supporting a pickleball court? Or you're just here? You're just here, I mean, I'm asking because I don't know.
I didn't come for this
Okay.
particularly, but I do support it, it's not too far from the house, and I find it enjoyable, and I enjoy that people are happy playing,
Okay.
and it's not during hours that are annoying.
And the rest of you are,
I'm outside of the decibel zone.
okay,
I'm here to support Terry.
you're here to support Terry, excellent.
So I live 3 houses down from Terry, kitty corner from the lot that used to be the tennis court.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I used to play tennis on that court because we had a nice neighbor who let us play tennis. I probably played every day in the summer for years and years. I don't know how noisy that was. When we yelled at each other, it was probably exceeding the limits, and probably there were some words in there we probably shouldn't have used. Pickleball's an annoying sound, but if they had a basketball court in there with kids playing basketball, I mean, a lot of people have a sport court in their backyard. You know, that's life, right? I mean, so I'm trying to study this and interested in what you're gonna be talking about. I know that people have been irritated by the sound coming from the public courts, but I don't really know what the private rule would be, right, for using your own
We don't even,
land, to do any kind of sports that might make noise.
I'm not taking names or address because this is not a public hearing and it's not official. It's simply a discussion. To the commissioners, have you thought any more about it? Don, have you thought about it?
I have a little bit, and I think there are two different issues. One is the public courts, and I think that's been kind of settled, and that is what it is. It's zoned as a park, the tennis courts or whatever it is, and that's what it's was built for. But to have a pickleball court in your neighborhood right next to you amongst all the houses, that I can completely empathize with, and I would not want one next to mine, my home. My neighbors do have barking dogs problems, those are mine, but
Here's the dogs are the problems.
I hear the dogs. I agree with you, Jenny, that I think probably some guidance from the city council before we kind of chase this down. You know, I'm not really sure how to kind of try to wrangle this thing.
As a comment.
Yes, Emerson, let me call him, yes, so
Okay.
she knows who's talking.
All right.
Emerson.
Comment, I like legal advice. Unfortunately, we lost our city attorney. I don't know how long it's gonna be before. Yep. I've got a temporary one now, okay, so I wouldn't want to go down the road too far without some legal advice on how much we can regulate a residence for basically part-time activity.
Peter Watts had discussed this with me, and he was more along the lines that this would be something that would be reasonably understood to potentially be in an R1 zone. With other courts that we have in town as well, there's multiple homes that do have sports courts that include basketball, I think tennis. I don't think there's another pickleball court out there that I know of, and they use it for various other things. The only thing that we haven't done is like, it looks like with these numbers, if this thing is accurately calibrated, that we may have an issue that if pickleball is being played, that it can exceed this ordinance. If it does exceed the ordinance and the person wants to go through with making a complaint, then we would bring this to court, and that might suss this out as well. Seeing as how the judge would react, because even though it would be against the ordinance, the judge may turn around and say what he has said for the dogs bark. He may say, well, if you allow sports courts, you're going to get the noise from the sports courts, so he may not rule against or choose to find a person for it, but we don't know until we get there. But I do imagine that looking at these numbers and these decibel levels, that there's a possibility that it could exceed those in their use, and then that would be another trial for this idea of what's too much noise.
The other thing it could lead to, maybe if whoever owns the pickleball court and is playing it and is told of what the actual measurements are, they might be able to take some mitigation steps, like pickleball but using a racquetball.
Or netting or sound netting that,
Doesn't make quite so much noise.
and that may be a remedy for any type of court action. If they were to put up the soundproofing, sound reducing netting that goes around the outside of these courts, although I've heard mixed reviews, they particularly Lake Oswego found it didn't work for them. But those are some possibilities as well. And we're not even sure that this, still to this day, that this court is being will be used for pickleball. I don't know that they finished the lines yet. I hadn't gone up there today, like, they were considering maybe or maybe not doing it.
I was gonna ask the gentleman that had played tennis on that court, how often did you or other people play tennis? Because I've never
How
seen
often
anybody.
I played tennis?
No, I think
No.
he's asking,
The person next to me,
Just, this was many years ago, so I'm really old. And we, in the summer, we played every day, not just us, but other kids. You know, tennis is a different sport, has a different sound. It's, I don't think, again, I've listened to pickleball and it's kind of irritating. So I'm a little concerned to put this in, you know, amid a bunch of houses. But I do have my own questions about, you know, what if they wanted to use it for something else, whether it was tennis matches all day, or whether it was basketball, or whether it was something else. So I'm curious to kind of see what the rules are. And this study is kind of interesting, that I've been able to take a look at on decibels, so. But I think for permanent residents like Terry, this might be more of a problem. The reason I was asking on use is because I biked by there lots of times. I walk my dog that way. I've never seen anybody on the court. Not for 25, 30 years there.
That's the old guy, because it was 25, 30.
Oh, man.
he was just a good
It's
person.
not in great shape right now.
Yeah, they let it go, so no one could really play on it.
He plays golf now.
Okay, oh, and golfers are really nice, they live next to the golf course and they address that ball in the funniest ways.
Well,
I'm gonna finish up here, Jerry, I see your hand, but just, yes, Russ.
you know, I'm just thinking about when they came to us to expand the courts at the city courts. And the neighborhood, it was a pretty strong condemnation by people blocks away each side of that court. That whether they were looking at decibel meters or not, they certainly were hearing it. And it was because of the repetitive nature, even if it wasn't at 70 decibels, it was annoying. And I feel like I'd rather address it as a, you know, say we don't do it in an R1, make a regulation, a zoning ordinance, rather than going to the, well, let's put an ordinance and then let's let somebody sue us, we'll sue them back. You'll never get to a resolution, let's just decide and do it that way. That's what I would suggest. And whether we have to wait for city council to come back to us and say, okay, make an ordinance. You know, I'd like, if that's what they do, then we have a path to go to.
Jennifer, did you have anything to add?
I feel like I agree with Don and with you, that I would rather pursue this if the city council directs us to.
Yes, I'll get you, did you have something you wanted to just?
Yeah, just one thing. Our house that we were in for 30 years on South Marion had a sport court right behind it. We never complained once. There were kids out there shooting baskets, they were playing badminton, and they were barbecuing. And pickleball is a whole different animal. And when I look at you're measuring at 100 feet and 30 feet, residential lots have what, a 5-foot setback. This particular issue now, the pickleball court is, it looks like it's right on the lot line, and then there's a house within 5 feet on either side. John's across the street, Sally Duncan's across the street. There's 2 houses behind them, and they're, now that's 6 houses probably within 30 feet. And there are other lots, people have a split lot that they can put a pickleball court in. And it's kind of like short-term rentals, you have to get ahead of it. And I remember the argument when we were doing short-term rentals, I own the property, I can do whatever I want, and you can't tell me. And pickleball does not belong in a residential area where houses are 10 feet apart.
Yes, John.
I mentioned when we had the discussions around the public court addition of 2, that I was probably of the commissioners the closest. I live literally diagonally across from this.
Right.
It is tremendously annoying. You do get used to it after a while, but I wouldn't get used to it if it was literally next door to me. So I think it's a real issue. I agree with Russ that it'd be better to take it on if the city council thinks it's a good idea for us to do so. I don't think it's something that we should jump into without some further analysis, but I do lean to trying to do something that makes sure that we don't end up with this in 4 or 5 areas around town, because we could.
And Eric, I think you wanted to say
I've
something.
got a few questions. Chad, do you have any way to suggest at all what your readings would have been, higher or lower, if you'd had the phone ball on there?
Yeah, I put it on there. They were a little bit different, but not much. Just a few decibel points.
All right.
Below.
Can I ask Terry a question?
Of course you can.
And it's a question like for all of us to consider, but I wonder what Terry's opinion is. What if the ordinance, what if an ordinance allowed pickleball but required sound mitigation strategies, reduced noise,
It becomes
balls,
an
paddles, and netting, for example?
It becomes an enforcement issue. And sound mitigation just isn't gonna work. Houses are really close together. And you don't wanna have it and have to go to Chad and say, hey, I can hear it. And, and what if they go out there and they're not doing what they're supposed to do? And you just make it a law or an ordinance, and then you don't have to worry about enforcement.
Let me ask Chad another question. You're talking about like where if you wanted to use the noise ordinance, you were suggesting that the measurement would be taken from where the person is complaining from. But, so why is that? I mean, if you're standing on the street next to the pickleball court, you're 15 feet away and the decibel level is outside, it could bother the pedestrians too. Why is the criteria to be at some distance rather than the source?
Because that's the way that the ordinance was
Does that say that in here?
Yeah, but I don't know why. I mean, I think that most of the streets and the sidewalks are generally transient folks
Okay.
walking through versus somebody who is sitting in their living room trying to enjoy an afternoon, listening to the ocean. I think that there's a different level of expectations of noise. For example, I mean, just a car driving by, it exceeds the decibel level, but of course, we're not going to go through that. So in order to make it enforceable and something that a judge would, potentially agree with the city, we put that in there.
Okay, but this says, public right of way of a distance of 50 feet or more from the south source of the sun. That's 3B. Yeah. So it sounds to me like you could be measuring this from 50 feet away.
On the street.
On the street.
Potentially, I don't have a lot of experience with this because we haven't used it, but yeah, it does say that.
So if we're just for the sake of argument, we're gonna try and deal with this by virtue of this ordinance. If you had a neighbor right next door within 100 feet, for example, and they weren't complaining, and you could measure, at 100 feet at somebody's house, and it exceeded the noise limitation. But that neighbor wasn't the complainant, but another neighbor was 300 feet away, they were complaining. And so you measured their property and it was below. So.
Then there's no complaint.
There's no complaint.
Then there would be.
You have to have somebody complaining
Yeah,
who is where the noise. is.
Wherever the complaint is, you need to measure from there to see if actually
Okay,
that level is, because.
okay,
I mean, you can think of examples where it's very loud in your house, you're having a party
Right.
there, but the person 50 feet away, or 100
Okay.
feet can't hear you.
okay.
I think what I'm hearing, I'm going to try to generalize and move this on. One, city council. We know that when we have things come from the city council, we are on much firmer ground. We know that we don't know legal issues. When you brought that up, I'm like, I don't know. We've got limited information here. I think that in hearing you, we want to do something, we don't wanna just let it sit, is that where we're kinda at, we think we may wanna do something.
Yeah, there's two of us did.
And yeah, and it's not that I just don't know, I mean, and our problem always is with anything like this. If the city council says, yeah, go ahead, then Garrett's gonna need to do more research and come back with us with information, correct, Garrett? You'll have to come back with a proposed ordinance, right?
Yeah, I envision us speaking with our interim land use attorney, or our interim city attorney, who's not a land use attorney. And to outline a couple alternative approaches for city council and seeing if they have a preference for doing nothing or doing one of those approaches, and working on it further with y'all.
Can that be done by the city council's August meeting?
That's my intention, yes, is to get that input at the August meeting.
You couldn't see Chad's face.
You weren't asking me, so I'm okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Sure.
Yes. Yes, Eric.
So I'm just wondering why we want to come from them back to us, why we wouldn't send it to them, if that's what we're interested in doing.
Can I answer that?
Sure, Don.
Because sometimes we work really hard on projects and send it to them and they totally just wash their hands of it. And so we have spent over a year on stuff that we could have been doing other stuff, and Terry's familiar with that as well. So if we can get a little bit of info from them, especially something that's just kind of out.
I mean, you guys have that experience,
Yeah.
so that's.
And it's not just our time, I think it's budget money. Our budget is tight, and I would want the city council to say, yes, spend money on this.
What do you mean,
If-
like consulting the spending the time, the attorney's time?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
I was gonna say, they could also decide that they want to address this, but really they just want to use the nuisance ordinance and make some changes there, in which case that might be more a matter of myself and Chad and the attorney working with them directly on a nuisance ordinance update. That's a little bit less in the purview of planning commission's role with land use law and zoning. So,
okay.
yeah.
Looking for nods.
Yeah.
By consensus, we're fine with what's been proposed. please go ahead with this. We wanna see what we need to do, if we need to do anything, or if they wanna handle it a totally different way. We need that direction, okay? Going back to my agenda,
Just you got a great week for that one.
any concerns of the commission?
Yeah, I have a concern.
Yes, Russ.
Is it possible for us to modify the tree ordinance in a way of the criteria?
Come out of here, Russ.
Well, and I'm just bringing this up as, is it something we can do here to go back to this, city council and say, hey, we want to add this to the tree ordinance? Or are we stuck with what they created? Specifically, what I do not like, the trees over there on First where they were measured at whatever, 3 feet. And they were.
4.5 feet, I believe.
Well, but, okay, 4.5 feet, they were 80. 3 feet, they were 67. So they're smaller, a foot lower than they are at 4.6. My proposal is they have to be equal to or greater below the 4.6. To make it a heritage tree, because otherwise it's a terrible looking tree over there, we have to treat with respect.
So you're talking about the type of trees that have a straight trunk, but then have.
Well, then they split trunk and.
Dominant has gone out like this.
On the golf course. I just think it's a bad definition, and I'm not trying to redefine it tonight, but I would like it to be redefined. Because it shouldn't be a heritage tree if it is a tree of that nature. But we'll talk about it another time. That was my concern.
Like 3 years from now?
August, if they meet in August,
I don't have a lot of experience with councils and planning commissions communicating very well. Because it's this exact thing we're talking about. We think it's a great idea, it gets up to council, and they're like, yeah, what, no. And then all that work goes away. Is there a method for a planning commission to write a letter to the council on behalf of the planning commission? To make a suggestion to them and to ask them if they would like you to work on it? For example, what you just brought up here with the co-dominant tree situation.
Well, of course, we could always do that.
Yeah, I was just trying to improve the communication between the two. And if it was something that the commission wanted to do as a whole, how to get that to the city council, for example, what we just talked about. We're gonna talk about pickleball, I'm gonna need your help. Maybe a letter with a description coming from the commission would be helpful, we can help write it for you, but then at least they have a better idea of what it is that we need.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And maybe
About pickleball or the tree. Same idea, good idea.
I'm looking for ideas, not even really making suggestions, just trying to know a way to improve that.
Well, Russ, what if you wrote the tree letter?
I will,
No, seriously.
and
Bring it to us and share it with us.
Oh, okay.
You authored
We can approve it and say it's from us, or we can say,
Okay.
just make it from Russ. I mean, it's okay, we can just make it for Russ, speaking for Russ, or we can say, Russ has written this reflecting all of ours.
Right.
Or maybe you can pick up half of us, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll write the letter, and if we get more than one other respondent, then I'm a happy person.
Okay.
Hey, we can enjoy ourselves. Anything else from anyone else tonight?
What are we supposed to do with this?
Yeah,
I mean.
I will not tell you what Jennifer and I discussed doing, but.
I looked at it and I scanned it, and looking at this, and then I was thinking on the comprehensive plan, Garrett's already done a pretty good job.
It was, Angelina, you want to give him the background on that?
I was emailed that draft in an email from Janelle Bagman.
Better.
And then I would say probably 3 days later, I was emailed in the same email. Kind of forwarded with the same email, by, Dana Gold, asking to make this correspondence with the planning commission as requested by.
That's why.
So that's why I printed out.
And then I approved it before I knew it was 7,000 pages.
Yeah.
So
Our
And I printed it because I was-
for it.
I think we could find alternative ways to get that to the planning commission in the future, rather than doing all this color copy by sending it to you as a file.
We already
Those
have,
of you that want the paper version can request it, we'll probably do that next time, but that's because I was not paying attention. I was, oh, neat.
We could break the bank.
Yeah. Smoke machine.
Chad's taking a salary cut. All right, anything else? It is 7:44. Good night. We'll see you in August.
Thank you, volunteers.
Thank you all very much. Chad, can I talk to you about something?
John.
I'll sign your letter.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna.
Okay, guys.